A huge warm welcome, art lovers, to Art Gallery Explorer, the vlog which celebrates the London art scene. Today I'm here at the Barbican to visit a show called the Imaginary Institution of India, Art 1975 to 1998. It's a show that's been on my wish list to visit since it opened in October, and I can't wait to head inside. 1975 was the date when Indira Gandhi enforced the state of emergency on India, and 1998 was when nuclear tests were carried out by India on its journey to becoming a fully fledged nuclear power. In between, it's fair to say, there was a tumultuous period of history with political assassinations of Indira and Rajiv Gandhi, the horrible Bhopal chemical tragedy which killed thousands. There was the rise of Hindu nationalism, violence between Hindus and Sikhs and Hindus and Muslims during this period, including the infamous destruction of a mosque. I'm not going to pretend I know anything about Indian art in this period yet. This is going to be an education and hopefully an eye-opener for me. I probably won't recognise many of the names in here, but it's brilliant that these works have been bought predominantly from India. There's going to be over 150 works. The show's on until the 5th of January, so we haven't got long to come and see it. It's £20 to get in, so come and join me as we head inside the Barbican Art Gallery here in the City of London. The art, and indeed this exhibition, is complex and covers a complex period in Indian history, so I'll give a little introduction to some of the main themes, but also hope that the art itself can do the talking and that you can sit back with some Indian classical music and enjoy it. The art begins in 1975 as Indira Gandhi declared a state of emergency in response to economic decline and mass protests. The emergency saw media restricted, opponents arrested, and civil rights curtailed. The art in this section very much is produced within that context. Emergency ended in 1977 and Indira Gandhi lost the election, and some Indian artists in the post-emergency period focused on portraying working class urban life, and this section captures a rapidly urbanizing and changing India in the post-emergency period. We're then taken to the street. Patel's Off Lamington Road shows the full range of street life in Mumbai. We see dancing people on the right celebrating, but we also see children with leprosy begging and a woman lying bleeding. Sunil Gupta and Bhupen Kaka, who you're going to see in a minute, remind us that it was incredibly complex being gay in India, and they responded to this complexity in different ways through their art. Bhupen Kaka's Two Men in Benares is a very powerful work. Unfortunately, I've had to censor it here for YouTube, but it's a beautiful work. And he said himself, the act of painting turned to the act of making love. That's why I started it. I add my fantasy to real relationship and also my painting. During this period, a growing wave of protests against gender-based violence, dowry burning and other practices swept across India, and many of the works in this section respond to and capture the concerns of that feminist movement. The exhibition points out that as well as the urban scenes portrayed earlier, many artists in the 70s and 80s looked to the cultures of the Indian village and try and engage with creative traditions of rural communities, and that's what this section focuses on. We also see some of Pablo Bartholomew's shocking and very well known photographs from the disastrous Union Carbide factory chemical leakage, which killed thousands and injured permanently hundreds of thousands. The next section, still on the upper floor, builds on the previous focus on rural communities and traditions by focusing on artists who attempted to document and survey folkcraft traditions. The word Adivasi, a Hindu word, was used to describe original inhabitants. And this was the attempt was seen to portray this kind of art not as old or primitive, but as contemporary, as living, as part of India today. final section of the top floor is really interesting because it focuses on artists who worked outside of and at times rallied against the aesthetic parameters of figurative narrative painting of the sometimes bourgeois-centered Indian art world. This piece commemorates activist Safdar Hashmi, who was murdered in 1989 and who used street theatre as a form of protest and act of resistance. Downstairs, in the bigger gallery space, we see a range of works, predominantly from the 1990s. Many of these works meditate on and confront the communal violence that erupted in the India of the 1990s, especially between Hindus and Muslims. But other complex themes and familiar artistic faces are seen downstairs as well. The series of works in this room focus and respond on the Congress Party-led government's economic reforms of July 1991 that basically turned India into a more market-driven, liberalised economy. And whereas the economy grew, there were effects of the free market and whole-scale privatisation also provided disruptive, and artists cast a rather cynical eye over this period. To the May 1998 nuclear tests at Pokhran in the Rajasthan desert, where India confirmed its ability to build nuclear weapons and therefore assert the country's place in a new global order. Artists responded to this powerfully. I hope you enjoyed that exploration there of the imaginary institution of India, art 1975 to 98. You know, I have a very pleasurable job in a couple of days of sitting down with a mince pie and looking back through all the shows I've been to in 2024 to formulate a top 10. But this show is certainly a contender. I'm not saying it's definitely in the top 10, but it is certainly one of the shows I've enjoyed a huge amount in London this year, having just freshly come out of it. I always think about these shows in terms of the good, the bad and the beautiful, and if we start with the good, there was a couple of things that I really liked about it. First of all, getting to see some fantastic art by artists I had not engaged with before. I have a blind spot, as I said in my introduction, for this period of Indian art, so it was wonderful to engage with some new artists, or new for me artists, and see some really high quality art in a diverse range of medium as well. That was brilliant. And secondly, this was such a turbulent and important period in Indian history. It was almost like the period that made India what it is today. And so this was a political show, and the art traced those political developments, but without, as good art always should do, without being really explicit. It wasn't didactic, it wasn't forcing it down your throat in any way, shape or form. It was just really wonderful and very powerful, and sometimes upsetting to see how artists reacted and tried to make sense of the turbulence that was going on around them in different ways. I found that incredibly powerful. So two really good things: the art itself was really good, and the kind of narrative, the way that this tracked the development of India, was also really strong. In terms of the bad, well, I would say that there was a brave curatorial decision to put absolutely minimal information on the walls. Now, I usually support that. I'm all for the art taking centre stage, and I praise the Van Gogh show for doing that. But you are given a hefty tome. This is it. It's glorious pink, as you can see. It's quite thick, which gives very detailed information. With these works, if like me, you're new to them, then context is really important, because you can appreciate the aesthetics, but the context of when these works were produced does really help make sense of them. So for me, I and I saw many other art lovers in the gallery kind of stooped in the gloom trying to read this booklet. And it was really hard, because those of you who are regulars to the Barbican will know it's very dimly lit apart from the works themselves. So I would advise you in this sense to get that, to bring some headphones. There's a free audio guide which you can access on the web, which basically produces some highlights of some works. And I'm not a big audio guide fan usually, but for this I absolutely found it invaluable. You could have some works playing as you walk round, and it allowed context for those works, and it kind of pulled together the whole show as well. In terms, so that was, yeah, I mean, it was to make full sense of it, you need something more than just the art itself. In terms of the beautiful, I don't know if I'd call all of these beautiful, but I picked these three works as ones which really stood out for me and which I loved. I absolutely love Sheila Gowder's use of cow dung. Hadn't seen these works before. It had such an earthy tone and rich tone, and also huge cultural significance. The cow is regarded as sacred in Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism, but it's also a symbol of non-violence. And furthermore, the preparation and handling of cow dung, used for anything from fertilizer, cooking fuel to insect repellent, is usually done by women. This work had a really potent feel to it, and I absolutely adored all of the works using this material. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know Bhupen Kakar's work. He was a star of the show for me, and I loved how we saw his style change from earlier works like Men in Benares and In a Boat to a freer, bolder style in works like this one, Pink City. These works are often highly charged, sometimes erotic, and we see a growing confidence in his style as he becomes more firm in terms of asserting the place of gay community in India. I also really enjoyed N.N. Rimsom's The Tools, that in lots of ways showed a move by Indian artists towards more installation style art, which we see towards the end of the exhibition. But also there was lots of potent symbolism about the economy and the economic changes India was going through in this work. Yeah, so overall, this is an 8.5 out of 10 for me. I think £20 is good value when you consider you get the big guide, basically a very comprehensive guide, and also a huge range of work. So I was probably in there for an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours. So it's a really detailed, developed show, as we come to expect from the brilliant Barbican. So I do recommend it. Thank you ever so much for watching and supporting the channel, and get out there and support your local art scene wherever it is in the world.